The knock on the door was what did it. I never saw it coming. I was sitting on the couch, watching an old movie, a bowl of half-eaten popcorn on my lap, and the soft glow of the TV lighting up the living room. The silence in the house was oddly peaceful, something that had become rare lately. My wife, Sophia, wasn't home again. The whole week had been like this. I'd gotten used to it. Maybe too used to it. She was always out, always busy. She'd tell me she was working late, or meeting friends, or running errands. But there was something about her tone lately, so dismissive, so absent. It wasn't like before. At first, I thought it was just stress from work. But by the end of the week, I couldn't ignore the gut feeling gnawing at me. That night, she was supposed to be home. She'd promised. We hadn't had a real conversation in days, and I was starting to feel the weight of the distance between us. But as the hours stretched on, and my phone remained silent, I knew I was in for another lonely evening. I wasn't upset, just confused. How had we gotten here? When did this become the new normal? It was like I was a shadow in my own home, and the person I was supposed to share my life with wasn't even interested enough to check in. Just as I started to lose myself in my thoughts, the knock came. 3 quick raps, sharp and uninviting, echoing through the quiet house. I looked up from the TV, startled. It was late, almost midnight. Who could possibly be at the door? I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood up and walked cautiously to the door, my heart beginning to race for reasons I couldn't explain. The uncertainty of it all hung thick in the air. As I reached for the doorknob, I hesitated for a second, then opened it. Standing there was a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, with a confident stance that made me feel small in comparison. His eyes were hidden behind dark sunglasses, even though it was late at night. A strange, almost unsettling presence hung around him. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, as if waiting for me to say something. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to mask the confusion in my voice. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step closer, his gaze flicking over my shoulder as if looking for someone inside. The air felt suddenly cold. "I'm here for Sophia," he finally said, his voice low but clear. "Sophia? My wife." I blinked, trying to process his words. "She's not home right now," I said, though I didn't know why I said it. I wasn't sure why it even mattered. The truth was, I didn't know anything anymore. I was standing there, trying to keep my composure, while the man in front of me seemed completely at ease. The stranger didn't seem surprised. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, handing it to me without a word. His hand brushed mine briefly, cold and firm, sending a shiver down my spine. The envelope was heavy, like it contained more than just a letter. I stared at it for a moment before taking it from him. "Give that to her when she gets home," the man said, his eyes still hidden behind the sunglasses. "She'll know what it means." Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night like a shadow. I stood in the doorway for a moment, the envelope in my hand feeling like a weight I couldn't escape. What the hell was going on? What did he mean? I glanced at the envelope again, the eerie sense that something was terribly wrong settling deep in my gut. I wanted to open it right then and there, to know what secrets it held, but something told me that doing so would change everything. I didn't know if I was ready for that kind of change. Not yet. I closed the door, my hands trembling as I walked back into the living room. My thoughts were a whirlwind, and the silence that had once felt comforting now felt suffocating. The questions kept piling up. Who was that man? What was Sophia involved in? And why was he leaving me a message meant for her alone? It wasn't until much later, when Sophia finally returned, that I had a chance to confront her. I had hoped she'd have an explanation, that she'd tell me who the man was, what the envelope meant. But when she walked in, her eyes immediately darted to the envelope on the table. She froze. I couldn't keep the confusion off my face. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't respond right away. Her expression was unreadable. Slowly, she walked over to the table and picked up the envelope, her fingers brushing over it almost lovingly. "This isn't for you," she said quietly, her tone distant, almost apologetic. And that was when I knew, whatever this was, it was bigger than I could have ever imagined. Whatever Sophia was hiding, it wasn't something I could ignore anymore. The truth was finally coming, and I had no idea how much it was going to hurt. The silence between us felt like a heavy curtain, each second stretching out unervingly long. Sophia hadn't moved from the table, still holding the envelope, her fingers trembling just slightly. I could feel the tension in the room, a suffocating presence that hung thick in the air. She was avoiding my gaze, but I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I couldn't. I wasn't just going to sit there and let her keep whatever secret she was hiding. Sophia, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the edge creeping in. Who was that man? Why was he looking for you? Her lips parted as if she was about to speak, but no words came out. She looked down at the envelope again, almost as though she was trying to read the answer there. I watched her every movement, every flicker of emotion that crossed her face. There was guilt in her eyes, I could see that much. Guilt, and something darker. Something I couldn't place. You need to tell me what this is about, I pressed. My heart was beating faster now, my palms sweating. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in my bones. She let out a long, slow breath, and for a brief moment, I thought she might actually open up. But then, she turned away from me, walking toward the kitchen. My stomach dropped. I wasn't sure if she was buying time or just trying to escape the conversation, but it felt like I was losing her again. I stood up, moving quickly to follow her. I needed answers. Sophia stood at the counter, her back turned to me as she stared out the window. You don't need to know, she said quietly, her voice barely audible. I could feel the anger rising in me, but I kept it in check. I knew that if I let it out now, I might push her even further away. I need to know, Sophia. I deserve that much. She was silent for a long moment, and I began to wonder if she'd even speak again. But then, she slowly turned around, her face softening, but only slightly. The look in her eyes was a mix of sadness and regret, as though she had been preparing for this moment for a long time, but never truly wanting to face it. I'm not proud of it, she whispered, her voice breaking. I never wanted you to find out like this. My heart pounded in my chest as I took a step closer to her. Find out what, Sophia? What is going on? For the first time, she seemed to hesitate. Then, with a defeated sigh, she sat down at the kitchen table and motioned for me to do the same. My mind was racing. What could she possibly say that would make sense of the stranger at our door, the envelope, the lies, and the secrecy? I've been seeing someone else, she said softly, her voice trembling as if the weight of those words was unbearable. For a while now. The words hit me like a physical blow. I didn't know how to respond at first. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand an explanation for all of it. But instead, I just stood there, stunned, trying to process what I had just heard. You've been cheating on me? I managed to ask, my voice cold and distant, almost as if I was trying to separate myself from the pain. She nodded, but didn't meet my eyes. I never meant for it to go this far, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. It started out innocent, just talking to him. But over time, I couldn't stop myself. I didn't know how to end it without hurting you, without losing everything. I felt numb, my mind reeling as the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. The late nights, the secretive behavior, the strange texts. It had all been leading to this moment, and I hadn't seen it coming. The person I had trusted more than anyone, the woman I had loved for years, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. But why? I asked, my voice shaky now. Why him? Why not talk to me? Why couldn't you come to me if things were so bad? I didn't know how, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how to tell you that I felt empty, like I wasn't enough for you anymore. That's when I met him. He made me feel seen. He listened to me when you didn't. He didn't judge me. It was like a lifeline, but I didn't realize how deep I had gone until it was too late. I felt a sickening twist in my stomach as her words sank in. She had been with him for months, maybe even longer, and I had been too blind to see it. She had been slipping away, piece by piece, and I hadn't noticed. I thought I had been doing everything right, working hard, being there for her, supporting her in every way I knew how, but apparently, it wasn't enough. And what about tonight? I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. Why did he send me that envelope? What does that mean? She hesitated, biting her lip as she looked down at the envelope in her hands. He's not just anyone, she said, her voice tinged with both guilt and fear. He's involved in something dangerous, something I didn't fully understand when I first got involved with him. The envelope is a message, a way to let me know that things are about to get more serious. He wants me to meet him tomorrow night. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean, Sophia? What kind of danger? Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her face. I don't know exactly, but I've been trying to pull away. He won't let me. And if I don't do what he wants, I'm scared of what might happen. I stared at her, the weight of the situation finally crashing down on me. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just a broken heart. There was something deeper, darker, and I was already in the middle of it without even knowing. I had no idea where this was heading, but one thing was certain. This was far from over. The air in the room felt thick, like we were both drowning in it. The weight of Sophia's confession hung between us, each word she spoke carrying the heaviness of 1,000 unspoken truths. I had spent years building a life with her, trusting her with everything, my love, my future, and now it felt like it had all been built on a foundation of lies. I didn't know how to process what she had just told me. She had been seeing another man for months. And now, it wasn't just an affair. It was something more. Something dangerous. I could feel my mind spinning, trying to catch up with the chaos unfolding in front of me. Everything that seemed solid in my life was suddenly shifting, unraveling, as if I were watching it from a distance, unable to stop it. So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the question hanging in the air like a lifeline. What do you expect me to do, Sophia? She looked up at me then, her face pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and guilt. I could see how hard this was for her, but I didn't know if that made it better or worse. She had put me in this position, not the other way around. She was the one who had lied to me, who had chosen someone else over our marriage, over everything we had built together. I don't expect you to do anything, she said softly, shaking her head. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to stay. I need you to understand that I never meant for any of this to happen. She paused for a moment, wiping her eyes as if trying to collect herself. But I've gone too far now. He's not someone you can just walk away from. I stood there stunned. The man she had been seeing was no ordinary affair. I could hear it in her voice, the tremor of fear that she couldn't hide. This wasn't just an infidelity. This was something darker, something dangerous that had somehow crept into our lives without me noticing. How bad is it? I asked, taking a step closer to her. What have you gotten involved in, Sophia? She swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the counter. I didn't know at first, she admitted. I thought it was just a fling, something to distract me from everything I felt was missing in our relationship. But then I realized that he was tied to things I didn't understand. I didn't know what he was really involved in until it was too late. I felt a pit form in my stomach. What things, Sophia? What kind of person are we talking about here? She hesitated again, her gaze shifting nervously toward the envelope still lying on the table, as if it held the answers she wasn't ready to give. He's connected to some people I don't want to be involved with, she said, her voice low and fearful. He told me I had to keep quiet, that I couldn't ask too many questions, but I couldn't just turn my back on him. He kept promising things, making me feel like I had no choice but to stay. I couldn't believe it. The woman I had shared everything with, the one I thought I knew better than anyone, had been dragged into something criminal. My mind raced with questions, none of which I could ask fast enough. Who was this man? What kind of things was he involved with? And more importantly, what was his plan for Sophia? Why had he sent me that envelope? What did he want with you? I pressed, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. I don't know everything, but I know enough to be scared, she said, her eyes filling with tears. He's involved in illegal activities. Drug dealing, money laundering, I'm not sure. He kept saying that I didn't need to worry, but I could see the way he worked. The people he knew. The way he controlled things. My mind couldn't catch up with the revelations. Sophia had gotten involved with a man who was part of something so much bigger, so much darker than I could have imagined. And now, she was trapped. She had gotten too close to him, too involved, and I could see that the consequences of that were starting to unfold in front of me. I'm scared, John, she whispered, her voice trembling. He said if I tried to leave, there would be consequences. And now, with the envelope, it's like he's giving me one last chance to prove my loyalty. My chest tightened as I listened to her. The woman I had trusted, the woman I thought I knew, was caught in a web of lies and deceit that I could barely understand. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about survival. So, what does he want from you now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might make the whole situation worse. She met my eyes, her face pale, her lips trembling. He wants me to meet him tomorrow night. Alone. He says it's for me to prove I'm still on his side. That I'm not going to back out. Her voice broke as she spoke. And if I don't go, I don't know what he'll do. I stood frozen for a moment, trying to process everything. Sophia had gotten in too deep, and now, she was being pulled further into this dangerous world with every passing moment. There was no easy way out. My mind raced, and I couldn't help but wonder, how far was I willing to go to protect her? Could I still protect her? Or was it too late? Sophia, I began, my voice shaking with a mixture of fear and anger. You have to stop this. You have to get out before it's too late. I don't care what he threatens you with. We'll figure it out together. But this isn't you. You can't let him control you like this. She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear, but also a glimmer of something else. A tiny spark of hope that I hadn't completely given up on her. But I wasn't sure I could save her this time. The danger was real. The stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. And I was in way too deep to walk away now. What if it's too late? She whispered, her voice barely audible. What if I've already gone too far? I didn't have an answer for her. The truth was, I didn't know how to fix this. But one thing was clear. Whatever happened next, our lives would never be the same again. And neither of us would ever be able to walk away unscathed. The next day dragged on as if time itself had slowed to a crawl. Every minute, every second felt like a punishment. I couldn't escape the weight of Sophia's confession, and the questions kept piling up, relentless, demanding answers. My mind couldn't stop replaying her words, the fear in her voice when she spoke about the man she had gotten involved with. What was I supposed to do now? How could I just stand by and let this unfold? But even more pressing was the question, could I protect her from this? Sophia had promised me she wouldn't go to meet him. She'd told me she was scared, that she didn't know what he would do if she didn't comply, but I believed she was strong enough to walk away. Still, the fear in her eyes the night before haunted me. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I had no idea where it would stop. I couldn't lose her. I didn't know how much more I could take, but I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't sit still anymore. I had tried to work, tried to focus on anything else, but I kept glancing at my phone, hoping she would call. I needed to know what was going on, if she had decided to fight back, if she was ready to walk away from whatever dark world she had been pulled into. I had already warned her, stay away from him. But I knew the hold he had on her wasn't something you could just escape. People like him didn't let you go easily. And I had no idea who he was, how far his reach extended, or what he was capable of. At 5 p.m., I received a text from Sophia. I'll be home soon. We need to talk. My stomach dropped, my hands shaking as I read it. Was she coming back to explain? Was she still planning to meet him? Or was she finally going to tell me what her plan was? I had so many questions, but no answers. All I could do was wait. She walked through the door a little after 6, her expression unreadable. She looked tired, drained even, like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, and that only made my heart ache more. I wanted to reach out, pull her into my arms, but I couldn't. I didn't know if I could trust her anymore. John, we need to talk, she said, her voice low and broken. She didn't look at me at first, as if she couldn't bear to see the disappointment in my eyes. I'm so sorry. I've made so many mistakes. I didn't know how to respond. How could I? I was terrified that every word she said would either push me away further or drag me deeper into something I couldn't get out of. But I had to hear her out. I had to know what she was going to say. Why didn't you go? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My heart was pounding in my chest, not from anger, but from the sheer weight of everything hanging between us. She shook her head, tears welling up again. Because of you, she whispered. Because you were right. I realized that I can't let him control me anymore. I don't want to live like this, John. I've been so foolish. Her words hit me like a wave. Part of me wanted to believe her, to trust that she was finally seeing the truth. But another part of me, the part that had been watching this slow destruction for months, couldn't help but feel like it was too little, too late. The man she had been seeing wasn't someone you could just walk away from. I didn't know who he was, but I was certain he wouldn't let her go that easily. You think he'll just let you leave? I asked, trying to keep the edge of disbelief out of my voice. Sophia, This isn't something you can just walk away from. This guy, he's dangerous. You've got no idea what you're dealing with. We've got no idea what we're dealing with. I know, she said, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I never should have gotten involved with him in the first place. But I was so lost, and he made me feel like I had no choice. I stepped closer to her, my mind racing with a million thoughts. We need to figure this out. We can't just hide from this, Sophia. I don't know who this man is or what he wants from you, but I'm not going to let him pull you deeper into whatever mess he's a part of. You've got to tell me everything. She nodded, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had married. The woman who used to be confident, strong, and full of life. She wasn't lost yet. Not completely. I don't know everything, she said quietly, still wiping away the remnants of tears. But I know that tomorrow night, he's going to come for me. I don't know if it's because he wants to make sure I'm still loyal, or if it's because he's trying to bring me deeper into his world. But I'm scared, John. I don't know what's going to happen. I felt a chill run down my spine. The thought of Sophia being dragged even further into this world, a world of danger and secrecy, was more than I could handle. But I couldn't give up on her. Not yet. Not when she was still willing to fight. We need to go to the police, I said, almost instinctively. It felt like the only option. We couldn't handle this alone. Sophia shook her head vigorously. No, you don't understand. If we go to the police, if I tell them what I know, it'll only make things worse. He's too connected. I don't know who he knows, but I'm sure there's more to him than just some criminal. I'm not sure who to trust anymore. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, and it hit me then. She was right. The situation was far more complicated than either of us could have imagined. The truth was, Sophia wasn't just in over her head. She was in a fight for her life. What do we do then? I asked, my voice steady but desperate. What's the plan, Sophia? Because I'm not just going to sit here and wait for him to show up. I can't. Sophia took a deep breath, her face suddenly hardening with resolve. I don't know if there's a way out, but I know one thing for sure. I won't go to him tomorrow night. I can't. I won't let him control me anymore. I looked at her, my heart in my throat. She wasn't just fighting for her life anymore. She was fighting for us. But I had no idea how this would end. I only knew that I couldn't stand by and watch her face whatever came next, alone. Whatever happened tomorrow night, I would be right there beside her. We had to fight this together. But how could we possibly prepare for the storm that was coming? The night dragged on in silence, the air between Sophia and I thick with tension. We didn't say much after that last conversation. She had made it clear that she was terrified, and as much as I wanted to comfort her, to assure her that everything would be okay, I couldn't lie. I didn't know if everything would be okay. I hadn't realized until that moment just how deeply I had been in denial. Sophia was in more danger than I ever could have imagined. I had always thought of her as strong, capable, someone who could handle anything life threw at her. But this was different. This wasn't a problem that could be solved with a few words of reassurance. This was something dark, something beyond our control. We sat there, side by side on the couch, both of us lost in our thoughts. I wanted to reach out, to take her hand, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The space between us had grown, and every time I tried to bridge it, it felt like the distance widened even further. The clock ticked louder than ever. Sophia eventually stood up, her movements slow, almost hesitant. I'll try to get some sleep, she murmured, her voice barely audible. I watched as she walked into the bedroom, the door clicking shut behind her. A part of me wanted to follow her, to hold her close and promise that everything would be fine. But I knew I couldn't. Not when the weight of the situation was so heavy on both of us. We couldn't pretend everything was okay when the reality was that we were sitting on the edge of something we couldn't control. I was scared, but I had to keep it together. For her. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was the man she had been involved with, the same man who had threatened her, controlled her, and dragged her into a world of lies and danger. I knew he wasn't going to just let her walk away. People like him didn't let go so easily. The house was eerily quiet. I could hear the wind howling outside, but the storm outside seemed nothing compared to the one brewing inside. It was like waiting for a bomb to drop, knowing you couldn't stop it, but hoping for a miracle nonetheless. I checked my phone again. No new messages. No calls. Sophia hadn't reached out, and I didn't know if that was good or bad. She hadn't told me what she planned to do. and a part of me wished I knew more. I didn't want her to go through this alone, but if she didn't want me involved, what could I do? I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out into the night. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, and the world outside felt strangely peaceful. If only life were as simple as it appeared in that moment. But the truth was, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Something that would change everything. I took a deep breath and turned away from the window. I couldn't keep waiting like this. I had to act. The more I thought about it, the more I realized there was only one thing left to do. I needed to find out who this man was. I needed to know everything I could about him, about his connections, and about what he wanted from Sophia. This was no longer just about saving her from a bad decision. This was about survival. Ours, both of ours. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. The night was too quiet, too calm, and I couldn't sit idly by anymore. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to wait for Sophia to get them for me. I had no idea where I was going or what I would find, but I couldn't just sit here. Whatever this man was involved in, it was bigger than us, and it was about to consume us both if I didn't act. I drove aimlessly for a while, my mind racing with thoughts. How did I even begin to track this guy down? Sophia hadn't given me much to go on, just that he was connected. But connected to what? Who were these people he worked with? What were they involved in? My thoughts were scattered, a million possibilities running through my mind, each one worse than the last. I eventually found myself outside a rundown bar on the outskirts of town. The kind of place that didn't ask questions, where people came and went in the shadows, and where secrets were traded like currency. I didn't know why I was there, but it felt like the kind of place where I could find something. I stepped out of the car, my heartbeat quickening as I approached the entrance. The dim light from inside flickered as I pushed the door open. The smell of stale beer and sweat hit me as soon as I stepped inside. A few people were scattered around the room, but the place was mostly empty. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I didn't even know if this was the right lead. I walked up to the bar and caught the attention of the bartender. A gruff man with a tired expression eyed me warily as I approached. "Looking for someone?" he asked, his voice low and uninterested. I hesitated. "I'm looking for a guy," I said. "He goes by the name Marcus. I think he comes here a lot." The bartender raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything at first. He glanced around the bar, then back at me. "Don't know any Marcus," he muttered. "But you're not going to find what you're looking for here. Not in the way you think." My heart skipped a beat. Was he talking about Sophia's situation? About the man she'd been seeing? "What do you mean by that?" I asked, leaning in slightly. The bartender didn't answer. Instead, he nodded toward the back of the bar, to a door marked with a small, unmarked sign. "If you're really looking for answers, you might want to talk to them. But don't say I sent you," he added quietly, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't question him. I knew it was a risk, but I had come too far to turn back now. I nodded, and with a racing heart, I made my way toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I realized this was no longer just a search for answers. I was walking into a world I couldn't control. And once I opened that door, there was no turning back. The door creaked as it opened, and I stepped into the darkness beyond. The door swung open with a reluctant creak, the kind that seemed to echo far louder than it should have in the silence of the backroom. My heart raced as I stepped into the dimly lit space beyond, the air thick with the smell of cigarette smoke and something more pungent, something I couldn't quite place. The room was empty, save for a few old wooden tables and chairs scattered around haphazardly, and a couple of low voices murmuring in the corners. It was eerily quiet, as if this was the kind of place where secrets were exchanged under the cover of darkness, away from the prying eyes of the world. I had no idea what I was walking into. For all I knew, I was about to find myself in the middle of something far worse than I had imagined. But I had come this far, and there was no turning back now. Every step I took felt like I was getting closer to the heart of the storm. And I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't find the answers tonight, everything would spiral out of control. I stood for a moment, trying to adjust my eyes to the dim light, when a voice from the far end of the room startled me. "You're not supposed to be here." It wasn't a question, but a statement, said with such finality that it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I turned toward the sound of the voice. A man was sitting in the far corner, his back against the wall, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. His face was obscured by the smoke, but there was something about him, something unsettling. His eyes gleamed in the low light, and he didn't move as he sized me up. I felt a rush of cold air rush through me as the room seemed to close in. "I'm looking for someone," I said, trying to sound confident, though my voice came out rougher than I intended. "A man named Marcus. I was told he might be here." The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took a slow drag from his cigarette, exhaling the smoke in a long, deliberate stream. He studied me for a moment, his gaze cold and assessing. There was a moment of silence before he spoke again, his voice now lower, more dangerous. "You don't know what you're asking, do you?" I felt the weight of his words settle over me. What was I stepping into? I had known this wasn't going to be easy, but I had no idea just how deep this rabbit hole went. I had to tread carefully. "I just need to talk to him," I pressed, my tone more urgent now. "I'm looking for answers. I need to know what he's involved in." The man's eyes narrowed as he stood up, his movements deliberate and slow. He took a final drag from his cigarette, flicked the butt onto the ground, and crushed it under his heel with a casual indifference. "Marcus isn't someone you talk to, friend," he said, his voice now a low growl. "And you don't get to walk into this place and ask about him unless you're ready for the consequences." A cold shiver ran down my spine as I took a step back, realizing I might have just walked into something far more dangerous than I had anticipated. But I had come too far to turn back now. I was too deep in this mess, and Sophia's life was on the line. I couldn't just walk away. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble," I said, my voice more forceful now. "I need information. I don't care about the rest. I just need to know where he is and what he's involved in." The man studied me for a moment longer, then nodded as if he had made a decision. "You think you can handle this?" he asked, his voice tinged with a mix of amusement and something darker. "You think you're prepared for what you're about to uncover? Because once you get involved with Marcus, there's no walking away. It's not like picking up a phone or calling the cops. This is real life, my friend. You don't get to undo what's been done." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I was walking into a world I knew nothing about, a world of violence, power, and crime. And all of it revolved around this Marcus character. I had thought I was just looking for a simple answer. But now, the realization hit me like a freight train. I wasn't going to get out of this unscathed. "I don't have a choice," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I need to protect my wife. If that means stepping into this world, then so be it." The man gave a dry chuckle, as if my words were amusing in some twisted way. "Protect her," he repeated. "You think this is about protecting anyone? You're already too far gone. But if you want answers, you'll get them. But be warned, you might not like what you find." He gestured for me to follow him as he moved toward a door at the back of the room. My heart hammered in my chest as I followed, each step heavier than the last. What had I just stepped into? And what had Sophia gotten herself mixed up in? The door opened into a dimly lit hallway, the walls lined with faded posters and old advertisements. I had no idea where this hallway led, but I had already made up my mind. I wasn't leaving without answers. As I walked deeper into the darkness, I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on me. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew one thing for sure. My life, and Sophia's, would never be the same again. We were already too deep in this, and there was no way out. The man stopped at a door at the end of the hallway, knocking twice before opening it. Inside, the room was filled with a haze of smoke and the low hum of conversation. A large figure sat at a desk, his back turned to us. He was older than I expected. His face was hard, his eyes unreadable. But there was something about him, something in the way he carried himself that made it clear he was the one who ran this place. "Marcus?" I asked, my voice shaky. The man at the desk turned slowly, his gaze landing on me with a chilling intensity. I froze. This was him, the man who had been controlling Sophia's life for months, the man who had pulled her into a web of lies and danger. And now, I was face to face with him. "Who's asking?" he said, his voice smooth, dangerous, and full of authority. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I am," I said, forcing the words out, even though I could feel my legs trembling beneath me. "And I want answers." Marcus smiled slowly, the kind of smile that sent a chill straight down my spine. "Then you've come to the right place," he said, his tone laced with menace. And just like that, I realized I had made a decision I could never take back. Marcus's smile never wavered. There was something unnerving about the way he looked at me, almost as if he were sizing me up like a predator analyzing its prey. I could feel his eyes piercing into me, making every muscle in my body tighten with unease. This wasn't just a man I was dealing with. This was someone who had power, someone who knew how to control people with nothing more than a glance. And here I was, standing in front of him, hoping I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. I stood in the doorway, my throat dry as I tried to maintain some semblance of control. I had thought I could handle this, thought I could just ask the right questions and get answers. But now, in this moment, with Marcus's cold eyes fixed on me, I wasn't so sure. I had no idea who this man really was, but the tension in the room made it clear that this wasn't some casual meeting. There was something at stake here, something bigger than I could have ever imagined. You wanted answers, Marcus said, his voice smooth like velvet, but with an edge to it that sent a chill through me. Well, you've come to the right place. But understand this, you don't get to just walk in here, ask questions, and leave. Nothing works like that in my world. His words were like a slap in the face. I had thought I could control the situation, thought that if I just pushed hard enough, I'd find a way to get Sophia out of this mess. But now, it was clear that I had no idea what I was truly up against. Marcus wasn't just a man with connections. He was a force, a danger in a way I hadn't fully understood until now. I'm not here to make trouble, I said, trying to sound calm despite the storm that was raging inside me. I just want to understand. What's going on with Sophia? Why is she involved with you? What kind of world have you dragged her into? Marcus raised an eyebrow, his gaze never leaving mine. He leaned back in his chair slowly, as if considering my words carefully. The room felt smaller now, as if his presence alone was swallowing up the space around us. You really don't understand, do you? He said, his voice quieter now, but filled with an almost amused undertone. This isn't just about Sophia. This isn't about some woman caught up in something she can't control. It's bigger than that. It always has been. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I had been so focused on Sophia, so intent on saving her from whatever mess she had gotten herself tangled in, that I had never considered the bigger picture. I had thought that if I just confronted this man, I could make him let her go. But now, with his words hanging in the air, I realized just how far out of my depth I was. What do you mean? I asked, my voice rough with frustration. What's bigger than this? What's going on, Marcus? He smiled again, but this time, it was colder. You really want to know? He asked, his tone almost mocking. You really want to step into the world I run? I didn't answer him right away. I was trying to process everything he had said, trying to make sense of it, but it was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. There was no way to fully understand it without getting in too deep, and I could feel that now. But I couldn't stop now. I couldn't turn back. Sophia's life was at stake. Yes, I said, my voice firm despite the doubt creeping in. I need to know what's going on. I need to know why she's involved with you. Marcus leaned forward, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk in front of him. Sophia was always more than just a distraction, he said, his eyes narrowing as he spoke. She's smart, capable, she has potential, and I saw that the moment I met her. She's not just another pawn in this game. She's useful. I could feel my anger rising. This was it. This was the part one hadn't wanted to hear. The truth that made everything feel darker, more twisted. You're using her, I said, my voice rising now, not caring if I upset him. You've been manipulating her. You're dragging her into something she doesn't want, something she doesn't understand. This isn't about her potential. This is about you controlling her. Marcus's gaze hardened. Control is a funny thing, isn't it? He said, almost thoughtfully. Most people think they're in control, but the truth is, they're already part of the machine. They just don't know it until it's too late. I felt sick to my stomach as the realization hit me. This wasn't just about Sophia's mistake. This wasn't just some affair gone wrong. This was about power, about manipulation. And I had walked straight into the heart of it, thinking I could fix things with a few questions. You're part of something bigger, I said quietly, my mind racing. Something dangerous, but I don't know how to stop it. Marcus's lips curled into a smirk. And that's where you're wrong, he said. You don't stop it. You get on board, or you get left behind. The choice is yours. But know this, if you try to take her from me, if you try to break the rules of this game, you won't just be messing with me. You'll be messing with a lot of people who don't take kindly to that kind of thing. His words were like ice water, freezing my blood. This wasn't just some petty crime ring. This was something massive, something I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And now, I was part of it, whether I liked it or not. I stood there in the dim light, my thoughts spinning in every direction. I had come here looking for answers, thinking that if I confronted Marcus, I could somehow fix this. But now, I understood that I wasn't in control. I never had been. And Sophia? She was trapped. Not just in this relationship with Marcus, but in a world that was far too deep, far too dangerous for her to ever escape. I wasn't sure if I could save her anymore. I thought I had been prepared for whatever was coming. But now, as I stood in front of this man, feeling the weight of his words bearing down on me, I realized how little I truly understood. "You're in over your head," Marcus said, breaking my thoughts. "And so is she. But if you're smart, you'll figure out which side you want to be on before it's too late." I stood there, frozen, unable to answer him. The weight of his words was crushing me, and I knew, deep down, that there was no going back now. I was part of this world now, and I had no idea how much longer I could survive in it. The tension in the room was unbearable, suffocating. Marcus's words echoed in my mind, each one like a weight pulling me deeper into a world I had never wanted to be part of. His smirk, the coldness in his eyes, the way he spoke as if he held all the power. Everything about him screamed danger, and I could feel the danger pressing in on me, on Sophia, on everything we had left. But somewhere deep down, I knew I couldn't just stand there, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. I couldn't let Sophia remain trapped in this world, manipulated by someone like Marcus. I had to do something. The thought of losing her forever was unbearable. I had made up my mind. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I finally found my voice. "You're wrong," I said, my voice steady, despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "You don't control me, and you don't control Sophia. You think you've got power, but you're not invincible. I will get her out of this, and I'll make sure you never have a hold over her again." Marcus's expression faltered for a brief moment. It was subtle, just a flicker of surprise in his eyes, but it was enough. I saw it. He hadn't expected me to fight back. He thought he could intimidate me, scare me into submission. But I wasn't going to back down anymore. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope in the midst of all the darkness. It wasn't just about fighting for Sophia anymore. It was about fighting for myself, for our future. This world, this dangerous, twisted world Marcus had woven around us, wasn't the one I was going to accept. Not for her, not for me. I stepped forward, my resolve growing stronger with every step. "You're not the only one who knows how to play the game," I said, my voice firm now, the fear fading from my chest. "You may have dragged Sophia into your mess, but I'll get her out. I'll make sure she's safe, and you won't have any power over us anymore." Marcus stared at me, his smirk fading into something more like curiosity than frustration. He didn't expect this. He wasn't used to being challenged. And in that moment, I realized something. Power wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about the choices you made. And I had made mine. "You really think you can take her away from me?" Marcus said, his voice low but edged with something dangerous. "You're playing with fire." But I didn't flinch. "You've already lost," I said, taking another step closer. "You're not going to win this. Not today. Not ever." There was a long pause. Then, just as quickly as the tension had built, it seemed to dissipate. Marcus let out a frustrated sigh, running a hand through his hair, as if weighing the situation in his mind. I could see the gears turning behind his cold eyes, and for the first time, I felt like I was getting through to him. "Get out," he said, his voice soft but with a finality that sent a shiver down my spine. "Take her. Just get out of here, before I change my mind." I could hardly believe what I was hearing, but I didn't waste another second. I turned and walked out of the room, my heart still racing, but now with something else: hope. We had a chance. A real chance to escape. A chance to rebuild. I found Sophia waiting for me in the hallway. Her eyes were wide, full of confusion and fear. But when she saw me, something changed in her expression. The uncertainty, the worry, it all seemed to fade, replaced by a glimmer of hope. "John," she whispered, stepping toward me. Did you get the answers?" I nodded, taking her hands in mine. "We're leaving. We're done with this. It's over. You're free." Her eyes welled up with tears, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled. A real, genuine smile. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly, feeling the weight of everything that had happened start to lift. We had made it through the worst, and now we could finally breathe. The world outside was still waiting, still uncertain, but for the first time, I felt like we could face it together. The darkness that had threatened to swallow us whole was behind us now, and ahead of us was the possibility of something better, something real. We had fought for each other, and in the end, love was the thing that had saved us. As we walked out of that place, hand in hand, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The past couldn't touch us anymore. We had escaped the darkness, and now we had the freedom to build a new life, one step at a time. And for the first time in a long while, I believed in a future. Our future,